Well, it is shortly after 9:30, and we're going to talk today about Chapter 10, Authentication and Account Management. We're going to talk about the three types of authentication credentials, what single sign-on can do for you, what is single sign-on, account management procedures for securing passwords, and defined trusted operating systems. Well, what is authentication? Matthew, what would you think authentication is besides the definition the book has?
Authentication, it's, okay. Authorization is you can do this. Authentication is verifying the identity of the thing being authenticated.
You're authenticating the object based on you understanding that is who they say they are.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, a little bit in this chapter, it talks about how we authenticate and manage those users. We're going to talk a little bit about the authentication credentials of those individual users, how they can be passed throughout the entire network as a single sign-on. What technology and techniques do we need to do to make or manage user accounts? And then, again, trusted operating systems. So, the types of authentication. There are three basic types. Now, they've come up with two others. I'm sorry. The three basic ones that you will know. What do you have? Key card, token card, your debit card, okay? What you are, right? What am I? Well, I'm the holder of that card, right? So if I put that card in the machine, the ATM machine, it says, hey, this person is who they are. And then what you know. In this case, it would be your PIN, right? So you have the token, who you are, which is set on the card, and then the PIN to access your bank account, right? You want to make sure that they have those three ideas. If someone stole your card, they need to know all three of those. Well, easy because they already know who you are because they got your card. So they got two of them, but if they don't know your PIN, they can't get in, right? That's basically what you have, what you are, what you know. The other two are what you do. Like for example, Aaron, you used to play baseball. If I didn't tell everyone that you used to play baseball, who would have known, other than maybe Kristen?
No.
Right? So, is that another good form of authentication? Yes.
Yeah, I guess.
For example, some of the security questions you get when you have a bank account. What did you do? Where were you born? Well, yeah, it's something you know, but it's also something you did because you were born there, right? Or, what is your favorite sport? You know, that's why some of the security account questions come up. So, let's talk a little bit about some more on authentication credentials. You have to have your code to get into the locker, right? You have to have the biometrics, the facial recognition, to maybe get into a gym. Thumbprint, key fob will get you into your car, get you into buildings. Why is it important to never tell anyone your password? Tracy?
Seriously?
Yeah. Why would you not want to tell someone your password other than letting them get into your stuff?
Because it's a form of authentication of something you know. And
It's a basic level.
you, only you're supposed to know it.
Right, it's the basic level form of what you know. Basically, when you log into a system, it's going to say, hey, give me your username, give me your password. Your password authenticates that your login credential is correct. Now, 95% of machines require you to have some sort of password or PIN to get into them. But passwords are really weak. Why? I can brute force them. Dictionary attacks. What other types of attacks can we do? Sean, what do you think? What happened this last week or two? Heartbleed.
Oh,
Right? The OpenSSL attack. Now, I will warn you, for those that have not already tried to change your password, don't change it until they've already said they've patched it. Because if you change it before the company patches it, you've given them your new password. So you want to make sure that the system is patched and updated before you start trying to log in. Weakness of passwords is linked to human memory. As the older you get, the memory starts going, like myself here, you know. That's why I keep one major password, but I change the characters throughout the password. And no, that was not a pun on the Dean and Prof. Dewey. Do what? Remember, we can only memorize so much, according to Mark Campia. You know, everyone can memorize some different things. Like numbers, that's really my thing. I like to memorize numbers. Maybe it's just my math brain, my science brain. But I like to get in there and say, know all sorts of passwords and combinations. That's easy for me to remember. Now, when it comes to names, yeah, I have a photographic memory. I can look at Tracy. If I didn't know Tracy's name, I could see her, find her see her somewhere outside. Guess what's going to happen? I'll remember who she is, but I won't remember her name. How many of us have that kind of problem? You've seen them before, you know you've seen them, but you don't remember their name. But then again, think about it in the other terms. Let's talk a little bit about, remember DNS. How many of y'all are familiar with DNS? Domain Name Service? Where you have to take a common name or colloquial name and it transfers it to an IP address, right? Because none of us are going to remember all these IP addresses. So it's easier for us to remember aaronsmith.com than it is 172.16.32.48. Well, actually, it'd be 49 because it'd probably be a network address. Users must remember passwords for different accounts. Now, security policies, it says mandate the amount of time that these passwords work. What would be your typical idea of how long a password should be, Kristen? I mean, as far as before you have to reset it.
8 characters with numbers.
No, I mean as far as the time, not the strength.
Oh.
30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, 180 days.
That's been the same for years.
I've actually had a system in the company that that some of y'all went to intern for. Have it all passwords not to expire. Granted, I am quickly approaching to change that here when we get all this. They're putting in Windows 7. They have like 3 machines left that they got to put out in the network, and they have some older machines that they have to worry about getting set up correctly because they're older applications that don't function on Windows 7. So as soon as they get that figured out, then what we can do is we can put that group policy out there and say, no, you're going to have 30 days. Well, I'm going to make some people mad. I probably will set it to 60 days because that's typical. How long is your user account for the school?
365. I've never had to change.
Well, is it once a year or something? Don't they do that once a year?
Ours is pretty much every other semester, or a semester and a half essentially. So it's like 180 days or something like that for us, but y'all have it more frequently. Using weak passwords. That is probably the biggest pet peeve of mine. Now you go to Google now and they have the strength tester on there to see how strong your passwords are. And if you don't meet a certain requirement, you have to redo your password, right? That's one way to get around using weak passwords. Or reusing the same password for multiple accounts. Remember, we can say that you can't use the last 5, you can't use the last 28 passwords. Right? We can set it to whatever we want to make sure that these users don't continue to use that same password over and over and over. Okay, time to reset your password, but if I set the threshold to be 1, that means it only keeps 1 in memory. They can keep switching like this. Is that really a good defense of the system? Mm-hmm. Not really. Attacks on passwords. My favorite one, social engineering. You know, I bet Tracy has a password, or used to have a password that had Quora in it somewhere, right?
Never.
She won't admit it, but I'm pretty sure it is.
My ex does though, and I know what it is.
See? It's social engineering. You get to get this information. Dumpster diving. Yes, Sean?
We did that for Miss Hayes' class. I told my brother and dad about the assignment. So ever since then, they've been worried because I was doing social engineering, like looking over the shoulder stuff, I got the password to their bank account.
Yes, Cody.
I socially engineered a couple at a concert and got their anniversary, their kids' names, where their kids go to school.
It is
Nice.
really easy
all
to do.
this stuff.
Matter of fact, I'm really guilty of it. I've already done it this semester to Cameron Tillman. He was filling out his HR paperwork and he was standing outside of HR and I happened to walk by and give him a pat on the shoulder and social security number was typed up in nice big bold letters.
Numbers.
So I come back 30 minutes later to his office and say, hey, do you recognize this number? And I wrote it down and handed it to him. He goes, how'd you get my SSN? He said, well, you didn't cover it up while you were doing your HR paperwork. You know, I try to help people. And then it goes back to my photographic memory and numbers. Those kind of things just pop out off the page to me. Capturing. How do you capture passwords? Keyloggers. That's probably one of the biggest ones. You know, you can do it through Wireshark, the protocol analyzers. You know, especially if you're doing it over Wi-Fi connections and they send it in clear text. Resetting. That's one that attackers love to do, or hackers. They'll go in, they'll reset your password. You know, you come in from vacation, your password's been reset. What do? You go to your IT department, hey, my password's been reset. Well, I didn't reset it. That gives you kind of an idea that maybe someone's playing around with you. Now, finally, you have the online guessing. You know, it's not really practical because there's not, without digging in deep, no one's really going to come out with their password, or they shouldn't. Offline cracking. That's when you start going in and try to break the MD5 hash, unencrypt it. They may steal a file with the encryption so that they can spend offline working on it without you knowing. Offline cracking types brute forces hacks, like I just mentioned a few minutes ago. That's where they send every possible type of combination of letters, numbers, special characters to fill in the sequence of how long your character is. It is very, very slow, but it is the most thorough method because it tests everything. Automated brute force. Now those are fun. It still takes forever, but it goes through and does the exact same thing. Dictionary attacks, right? What if you had a password, web, dude, 2010? How easy do you think that would be to break? Because it's all dictionary words. It'll pick out web and it'll pick out dude, and then 2010, there's not very many. You know, if it comes up and says, well, I've got these, and the rest of them are numbers or special characters, how easy is it going to be now? If you know there's only 4 characters left. Remember, it's 10,000 or less, right? So here's what happens. Yes, ma'am.
Just wondering, at what point is it social engineering, and at what point is it, say, a conversation? I mean, I understand that's how you can socially engineer, but I can't tell anybody anything about myself now. No, I mean,
Pretty much,
like,
yeah.
as far as, no,
He's
but
got it,
that's,
good.
Yeah.
That's the
that's-
best way to do it, is not say anything about anyone.
Or lie.
But,
Like when you're standing in line at the grocery store and you tell people that you have a different profession than you do.
Who does that?
Nobody does that.
like Prof. Dooley, right?
but that's, I mean, how do we resolve that? I know that's actually an
Already know
ethics
who your
class.
friends are. You
Yeah.
just have to already know.
I never tell a stranger, I don't want to say not the truth. I will tell them the truth, but I won't give them anything that would have anything to do to figure me out.
Like if
I will
you know
give it-
your
I'll
password
be
is your
abstract.
birthday, then you don't just tell your birthday
Well,
to
yeah,
everybody.
but I
you
mean-
know?
For example, someone comes up, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a sports official.
You have something ready.
You know? Well, yeah, I'm a sports official. I've been a D2 official for going on 7, 8 years now. And you look at it and you're like, okay, well, I'm a sports official. What sport? I don't identify it. Unless they're another official, then I will tell them what sports. But still, they don't get any other information out from me other than my name. And if you go search for me, you're going to find my cousin. You're not going to find me. My cousin's a 27-time national disc golf champion. You do Google search for Scott Stokely and see what you get. You're going to get my cousin. You're not going to get me. The only thing in the first 5 pages of Google that is about me is my Facebook page. That's over 100 hits or 100 different searches.
Oh, apparently your cousin has an injured back and elbow.
Probably so. I haven't talked to him in a while. But anyway, getting back to this. Dictionary tags basically takes a word like abacus, throws it at Viz, or the encrypted results, to get the password file. I mean, it encrypts it, sends it on. Hybrid attacks. Slightly different than dictionary attacks in that it takes other components, like numbers, special characters, and applies it. It likes to take words backwards. Like, if I'm gonna do a brute force attack against Ubuntu for the root password. How many of you know what the root password is for Ubuntu? For any Linux system. The initial, which one?
I believe it's TOR.
TOOR. This is the type of hybrid attack that you could use because it's root backwards, right? TOOR is not really a word unless you change it around. Then it's root. So that's exactly how it functions. Rainbow tables. I've never really seen those in operation, but basically it's just a group of data that they push against a password. Like if I went and searched everything about Tracy and got all this information about Tracy, then I could form a bunch of different words or passcodes that would affect Tracy, and then I would shoot them against her.
So is a rainbow table just a concentrated dictionary attack?
Yes, pretty much. It's not starting with A and going to Z. I mean, it's
It's selective.
right.
But it attacks the same way? It just runs through and matches up stuff?
Exactly. I can say we're going to do a set number of rounds with these types of words. I can feed into a function, making plain text passwords. I can send you clear text passwords. I can send encrypted passwords. I can do all sorts of cool stuff with it. Then I use that table that the data comes back with to break your password. So how do we defend against these types?
Create a stronger password.
Stronger password, more complexity.
One that you don't write down on a sticky note and stick under your keyboard.
Okay, Prof. Dewey. Now I know where yours is, right? No, just kidding. Most passwords consist of a root, an attachment, which is either prefix or suffix. In other words, they have a not root or Tor. They'll have Scott being that root password. Then they add something to the beginning or something to the end of it. So if it's Aaron's favorite cat, and it's Smiley, okay? Smiley is the cat's name. I love Smiley. Smiley loves me. That is what we're talking about, where you add that prefix or suffix to it. And I don't know if you have a cat or not, Aaron. I'm just picking at you. What? The attack program will take those common passwords. They'll use around 5,000 common dictionary words, 10,000 names, 100,000 complex or comprehensive dictionary words to come up with types of attacks. How many of y'all have had? It's Mr. Dewey's. Is it the computer security class where you have to break in the dictionary attack passwords?
Forensics.
Oh, is it forensics that does that?
Mhm.
How many of y'all have had that? So you know exactly what we're talking about, where you substitute an S for an S, be uppercase for lowercase. Those are fun ones. Just like I've done on some of my tests, where if it's version A, all the answers are A. How obvious do you think you're thinking? Oh, this is no way possible, right? See, you'll never get it. But hey, just substitute the opposite letter for it, right? So if you have a percent sign, it would actually be a 5. An uppercase for a lowercase. General observations to creating strong passwords. Don't use anything that is dictionary based. Don't use words. Don't birthdays, anniversaries, anything that we could find generically, okay? Because if you say, okay, my birthday is February 22nd, how many different combinations are there of February 22nd? You got 0222, you got 222, you put slash in, you put Feb 22, February 22. I mean, you see how many, it gives you a lot more, but still it's easier to repeat once you, or to find it because it's not as well out there. Managing passwords. Tracy talked about this. Don't put it on your keyboard. Don't put it on the monitor. Don't put it underneath or in your drawer. I've actually seen someone that would pull out their front drawer, reach out underneath it, pull off a sticky note, type it in, put it back, and slide it back in.
Ooh, they're being sneaky.
Well, I thought it was funny. After they left, I went back to their office. I opened that drawer, pulled it out, put a different sticky note on there, shut the door. And then they called down the ID department. What's going on? Why can't I get in? I said, well, if you didn't leave your password hanging around, you probably wouldn't have the problem now, would you? And they never did it again, as far as I know. They probably put it on the other drawer on the other side, but I'm not going to go looking through people's drawers to do it.
Don't put it in a text file on your computer because that could be stolen off and thrown in something and get involved.
You know, Mr. Dewey has this thing about going to LastPass, right? How many of y'all have put all your passwords in LastPass? Do you know that it was actually broken into through the OpenSSL? So now, if I put all mine in there and it gets broken into, what happens? They have all my accounts. I have to change every single account. So how beneficial is that one collection point?
Not very.
Not very. I mean, it's good because it's based on AES 256 encryption, but if OpenSSL, which they ran off of, was broken, what happens? Good management practices. Never write anything down. Never have it automatically sign in. How many times have you gone to a computer where the last user signed in is the name's still there?
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
You know, that makes it so easy to social engineer and figure out what their password is because you'll know who they are, then you can go and pick on them and get information from them, then you start logging them out.
We changed the desktop to let David Hasselhoff. We
Yeah.
changed their pictures.
Oh, yeah, you had fun with it, didn't you?
Yeah.
On non-keyboard layouts, what is the way to do it? You can hold down the Alt key while typing numbers on the keypad.
Oh yeah, those fun ones. Yes.
Because you get special ones that no one would know. Password supplements. Well, if you have a strong password, it can become burdensome for you. So if I said you have to have a 25 character long with 3 upper, 3 lower, 3 special character, and 3 numbers, non-repeat. Not totally covered in it. But still, I mean, you can make it to where your users will forget them all the time, and then you as an IT department have to go and reset them for everyone. How well is that for you? Right? Yes, Sean.
When you were saying about like the password, I had a friend in high school. His password for his email was like 30 characters long.
Hope it was something easy to remember for him.
I don't know, but he somehow remembered it every time he logged in.
Yes, Brandon.
About the passwords, Mr. Clark always told us, don't leave your computers unlocked. I won't mess with them. And I showed up to class, and my friend Kyle, his computer wasn't locked, and his was the one I was sitting at. I guess all I did was just, he didn't log off, he just put it to sleep, turned it on, and said, came up, I had the username, and I was just like, can I mess with Kyle? He's like, alright. I made it to where everything was just flipped. I made the screen upside down. I hid all of his stuff, took a snap, took a picture of the screen, hid all his icons. I haven't changed the password just for the fun of it.
There's a lot of things that you can do to systems. My favorite thing is to completely lock them down to where all they have. All I do is I create my own GPO, and I'm running it through a batch file, so it'll automatically do the GP update for me to a local local security policy. But what it does is it changes that to where the only thing they can do is click on the start button. Nothing else appears. Okay, Windows character maps. How would it be if you put something like that as a password?
Oh, Then
I would give up.
You can't use them anywhere. Like the alt codes, I tried that a couple weeks ago. I was experimenting around to see where you could use alt codes because I figured that was a good idea. It just kind of occurred to me. And I tried it on different banking websites. I tried it on credit cards. I tried it on several different email accounts. Even tried just sending an email. And Rose's email won't even recognize it in the actual text email.
And you know why? Because depending on the authentication protocol, if it's Windows-based, it won't accept it.
The new Gmail should though, because the Gmail and the Yahoo accounts that I tested it on would at least go through email. But nobody that I could find. It says in the book that more and more people are using it in emails, in
I haven't
passwords.
seen it.
Nuh-uh, I haven't seen a one.
And it's because, again, technology always comes 5 years later than the theory. And then the hackers get to it before the patches happen, right? Password supplements. Oh my goodness, don't get me into these. Google, Firefox, and IE all like to store your passwords. Don't do it. It stores it in your cookies, and I can just download your cookies and you're in trouble. Autocomplete passwords. Listen.
On that, how do you feel about apps that change the keyboard theme, but they're like, we can save everything that you type with this keyboard?
It's a keylogger.
Okay. Maybe I should delete that app.
You're allowing malware and spyware into your system. You know, basically, the disadvantages of password supplements at the time they wrote it was only on that one computer. Now you have that single sign-on, so no matter whether you're in, like Google, any Chrome machine, you're gonna be able to pull up your passwords and history and favorite toolbars and all that stuff wherever you go. Oops. Password management applications such as LastPass, we just talked about it being a vault that stores all your passwords. It's good, but when it gets broken into with like Heartbleed with OpenSSL, it's not really the best thing you want to do. Password management applications or features, they have some that you can drag and drop your passwords into the password box and they'll fill it in. But is that really a good thing? No, because when I'm dragging, well, it's not to say it's not coming out in clear text. If I have a keylogger or a screen viewer, see that password going across. Because remember, once you start dragging and dropping, it goes to that clipboard. So if I'm running a tool to pull down everything that you have on your clipboard, and you dragging, moving anything over, guess what happens? Have your passwords right in front of me. Scary, isn't it? Now, I'm not trying to make this a scary class, but hey, it's what network security is about. Now, let's get into what you have. Tokens, key cards, debit cards, right? A token. It'll be a device similar to this, and they come in all shapes and sizes. But they have anywhere from a 5 to 15-digit combination where you have to punch in order to access the system. And it could be changing every 30 seconds, every 60 seconds. I've seen them up to 5 minutes and 15 minutes. Depending on what your application is, how strong do you need to do. All it is basically an algorithm that creates this code, displays it for you. And I've seen one where you hit the button. It won't display it until you hit the button. Once you hit the button, it comes up and says, here's your 5-digit code. You type in the 5-digit code, then you have access to the system. But how scary is that, though? What happens if you lose that? Basically, you're going to have to log in with the username and the code that comes from that token. Sometimes a password along with it, depending on how you set it up. If there's a match, it's going to authenticate you. If there's not, you're not going to get authenticated. Advantage over passwords. What's an advantage with the tokens over the passwords? Well, they change repeatedly. Password, you have to change ever so often, right? 30 days, 60 days, up to 120 days, 180 days. This can change every 30 seconds. It's a lot harder for someone to break into your system if they don't know the token. But if they steal your token, they gain access to your system. So,
But you also notice that it's gone rather quickly. You can shut it down with a thumb.
maybe.
Hopefully. You have a better chance of knowing that's been stolen than if your password's been stolen.
Yeah. Because you'll see it. It's something physically that you have. So basically what happens, the token comes up, gives you a code like 811314. The user types in their name, 811314, sends it over here, validates through the authentication server, sends it back that yes, that's who they are. They're authenticated. And if it's not who they are, you don't get authenticated. We just talked about that, the advantages over the passwords. Like I said, you can have some variations where you can have a password with it or a PIN. That would be something else that you would have to know. I like it when you're using tokens to have 3 different levels of security so that in case it does get lost, no one can access your system. Unless they know what that PIN code is or if that password is. But it can also become a headache if you're changing your password and use your old passwords with the wrong code and stuff. Cards. Common access cards for the Department of Defense. Basically, they're now going to be your credit cards that have the memory chip installed in it, the radio RFID, where you just go up and go click at the gas station or whatever. Those are where we're going. Okay,
Doesn't that
smart
make it
cards
easier to steal?
actually have a
Steal?
do what?
Doesn't that make it easier to steal?
Yeah, but if it shows up in St. Louis and you just gassed up 5 hours to go here, and you have a secondary account with that company and you're still here in 5 hours, what's the likelihood that one's stolen? So, they're speaking of, I hate credit card companies for the simple fact that they say, tell me where you're going so that we'll authorize your trip through those states. How many times have everyone taken a trip and your credit card gets declined? You know you got money in it, but your credit card gets declined at the gas pump because you're 2 states over from where you live. And then well, you have to call in, and it's a hassle. It's embarrassing. Oh, sorry, your card was declined. It wasn't authenticated. And you call up and, well, where are you headed? Well, it's none of your business where I'm headed. You know, because they're just trying to social engineer you to get a map of where everyone travels to.
We don't have trust issues, do we?
Oh, I have a lot of trust issues, especially with you.
Good.
Okay, smart card. Basically just has your little smart chip on there. Your SIM card is a smart card. Your SIM card in your mobile phone. It stores all the information on it. You have a smart card pad that goes on top of it. When you slide it into the card reader, it reads the data off of there. Prof. Dewey, what's the biggest one you've seen with the memory on these? I've seen a 2 gig. Have you heard of anything higher than that yet?
That's about the only size I've seen.
And they go up to about 2 gig of memory. I know they're looking to get it more advanced, especially for the Department of Defense, so you can put files and stuff on there that you need to take home with you. So no one would think to look at your smart card or your CAT card when you're leaving. But if you're taking a laptop, what are they going to steal? No one wants an ID because it's worthless to them. Because they have to manipulate the picture and all that stuff, and they're not going to be able to get on base when they try to mess with the picture. So they don't even think about that, but we're getting smart and storing stuff on smart cards now. Standard biometrics. It's who you are, right? Your facial recognition, your eyes, your thumbs, your voice. All biometrics. Fingerprint scanners. Basically, they scan your fingerprints. You go to your driver's license now. What do? Give me your left thumb, is it? Or right thumb? You know, go to military installation. If it's a very secure application, give me your whole handprint. Give me your eye prints. Or iris scans. How many of y'all have had these on your laptops? I have them. It's a biometric device. You just roll your thumb over it and it verifies you. I've done it with all 10 fingers, so it didn't matter if someone cut off one finger, I still have access to it. But there was nothing on there to keep that secure, so it didn't really matter. I finally got tired of it because it quit working. Disadvantages of biometrics. Your hand can be cut off and can still use it. You know? Behavioral mechanisms or biometrics. Now this is kind of a newer idea, is how fast are you typing? How do you type? Where's the pressure points? It starts taking these features and creating an environment saying, if you don't match these signatures, you're not who that is.
I had no idea this could be so accurate. Is something about 97% accuracy?
Oh yeah, because you take it for a lot of different things. Like, intelligence. How many of y'all have watched the show Intelligence? Okay. There was one episode a couple weeks ago where he had to do facial Riley,
Oh,
female
yeah.
character, had to do facial recognition and type it in. Well, she wasn't the guy, but what they would do with that where she typed it in, it would be reading the speed of which she typed in the password. You know, if you're sitting here, you type in your 6-digit PIN number really quick. Everyone's pretty good at typing your pins, right? Well, if I don't know your PIN and I'm having a look, I'm going slower than what you normally would. So it wouldn't authenticate me. Because I didn't meet in that criteria.
Until you mess up.
Yes, Stephanie?
My bank uses the computer footprinting,
Mm-hmm.
where if you log in from somewhere they're not familiar with, you have to answer more questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
You go back and answer your security questions, and knowing my luck, I'll misspell it or put an uppercase letter instead of a lowercase letter. And
Or, I mean, those security questions are usually so stupid. They're things that people can social engineer so easily. Have you seen the movie Now You See Me?
I haven't seen it yet,
That was
but
awesome. But they social engineer the guys all his banking security questions, and they watch it. You watch them do it. It's really cool.
it doesn't take very long. Keystroke dynamics, we were just talking about that, the pace in which you type. It has 98% accuracy. Because what happens if you have a migraine? Are you going to be a little bit slower typing? I cannot get authenticated. But if I have a migraine, I'm not going to be there to type it in. You would think. Me, I'll probably be there, unless it gets too bad. You have dwell time and flight time, the time between strokes and the time between the press and the release of the key. So that tells you there's different ways you can measure this. All right, typing template. So I'm looking for the password. Here's a signature of what I've done. All right? If I go outside of that, I'm not approved. So if you follow along with this, then yeah, he should be good. But the attacker isn't going to have it close enough. You see the difference? Voice recognition. What happens if you have a sore throat?
Am I supposed to stay off the computer?
Actually, I've known a company that gives you two. They make you drink lemon, straight lemon, and it gives you a sore throat so that you get that, yeah. So it can still authenticate you even if you're sick.
So that's their way of saying you better be at work even if you're sick.
Exactly.
Nice.
You're on call 24/7. All right, computer footprinting. You were just talking about this, Daphne, where they pinpoint the MAC address of your computer that's being stuff is being sent on. If it doesn't match, then they make you do all the security questions over and over and over again. Cognitive biometrics. Cognitive biometrics. It's based on your user, like Aaron playing baseball. How hard would it be for me to duplicate that? Him telling the story of his grand slam in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs and 3-ball, 2-strike count in Game 7 of the World Series. Okay. Do what?
It's like impossible.
You know, telling that story could be going through your biometrics. Single sign-on. What is single sign-on? Basically, all it is just authentication. Now I'm giving you authentication to all the trusted networks that are inside this domain of mine. So that you don't have to re-authenticate yourself if you go into a different file, different folder. Once you're authenticated in my network, period. Okay? Windows Live ID is a single sign-on. So you can sign in there, you can be in TechNet, MSDN, all sorts of stuff. MSN Messenger. It's just a global cookie. OpenID, basically the same thing, is Windows Live ID. It's an SSO. Open authorization, basically it relies on token credentials for you to get through and access certain sites seamlessly without having to re-authenticate yourself over and over and over and over. Don't you hate that? You go from one page to the next and you have to re-authenticate yourself every single time? They did away with that and did single sign-on. Account management. Managing user account passwords. Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I'm not going to rehash it again, but you assign privileges to groups rather than individuals because it's a lot easier to change permissions for a group than it is an individual or multiple individuals. Here's some GPO type settings, password policy settings. The typical ones, 24 new passwords, 60 days, 1 day, 12. I mean, go ahead and take a look at that. Trusted operating systems. What is a trusted operating system? One compromised application can affect your entire computer if you have a trusted network, right? Applications cannot authenticate themselves to each other, so you don't have that SSO, right? Basically, a trusted operating system is something that's built from the ground up that will help to prohibit administrators from making harmful changes. So, Daphne can't make a change on one system, I make a change on is the opposite on another system. It won't let us do that. It'll make sure that it's secured. Is there any questions? No? All right. Now what I want you to do